Good morning. To my logo. My sister got this for me from the Dyson Crazy Adventures. She made that. Oh, it is Tuesday morning, which means it's AA. Sorry, I was not feeling well on Saturday. I was fighting a headache, and so I decided to not do AA on Saturday this week. But good morning, Quinn. So let's give it a couple minutes and have people come in. I'm also live on Facebook. Wait a couple minutes. All right. So please be mindful and don't judge each other in the chats. We are all here to see if AA will help you to stop whatever the bad habit is and not drink. I'm Sandra and I'm an alcoholic. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I do put in the description what book we're reading, the page we are on, and the name of the story we're reading. And if you don't have a book, don't worry, I will be reading it anyways. So, and if you don't have a book and you would like one, you can get them pretty much anywhere. And also there are apps that are daily reflections, and it also has the book reading in there. Some of them have audiobook, and so you can listen to it. But I'm going to read them here anyway, so let's get on and do our steps. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So we are in the big book on Me, an Alcoholic, question mark, 382. Alcohol ringer squeezed this author, but he escaped quite whole. When I try to reconstruct what my life was like before, I see a coin with two faces. One, the side I turned to myself, and the world was respectable, even in some ways distinguished. I was father, husband, taxpayer, homeowner. I was clubman, athlete, artist, musician, author, editor, aircraft pilot, and world traveler. I was listed in Who's Who in America as an American who by distinguished achievement had arrived. The other side of the coin was sinister, baffling. I was inwardly unhappy most of the time. There would be times when the life of respectability and achievement seemed insuperably dull. I had to break out. This I would do by going completely bohemian for a night, getting drunk and rolling home with the dawn. Next day, Rose would be on me like a tiger. I'd claw my way back to respectability and stay there until the inevitable next time. The insidiousness of alcoholism is an appalling thing. In all the 25 years of my drinking, there were only a few occasions when I took a morning drink. My binges were one-night stands only, once or twice during my early drinking. I carried it over into the second day, and only once that I can remember did it continue into the third. I was never drunk on the job, never missed a day's work, was seldom rendered totally ineffective by a hangover, and kept my liquor expenses well within my adequate budget. I continued to advance in my chosen field. How could such a man possibly be called an alcoholic? Whatever the root of my unhappiness might turn out to be, I thought it could not possibly be booze. Of course I drank. Every day, everybody did in the set which I regarded as the apex of civilization. My wife loved to drink, and we tried on many a hooter in the name of marital bliss. My associates and all the wits and literary lights I so much admired also drank. Evening cocktails were as standard as morning coffee, and I suppose my average daily consumption ran a little more or less than a pint. Even on my rare at first binge nights, it never ran much over a quart. How easy it was in the beginning to forget that those binges even ever happened. After a day or two of groveling remorse, I'd come up with an explanation. The nervous tension had piled up and just had to spill over. Or my physical plant had got a little run down and the stuff rushed right to my head. Or I got to talking and forgot how many I was taking, and it hit me. Always we'd emerge with a new formula for avoiding future trouble. You've got to space your drinks and take plenty of water in between, or coat the stomach with a little olive oil, or drink anything but the damn martinis. Weeks would go by without further trouble, and I'd be assured I'd at last hit on the right formula. The binge had been just one of those things. After a month, it seemed unlikely that it happened. Intervals between binges were 8 months. My growing inward unhappiness was a very real thing. However, and I knew that something would have to be done about it. A friend had found help in psychoanalysts. After a particularly ugly eight-nighter, my wife suggested I try it, and I agreed. Educated child of the science age that I was, I had complete faith in the science of the mind. It would be a sure cure and also an adventure. How exciting to learn the inward mysteries that govern the behavior of people. How wonderful to know at last all about myself. To cut a long story short, I spent 7 years and $10,000 on my psychiatric adventure and emerged in worse condition than ever. To be sure, I learned many fascinating things and many things that were to prove helpful later. I learned what a devastating effect it can have on a child to coddle him and build him up and then turn and beat him savagely, as had happened to me. Meanwhile, I was getting worse, but as regards my inward misery and my drinking, my daily alcoholic consumption remained about the same through all this, with perhaps a slight increase, and my binges remained one-nighters, but they were occurring with alarming frequency. In 7 years, the intervals between them decreased from 8 months to 10 days, and they were growing uglier. One night I barely made my downtown club. If I'd had to go another 50 feet, I'd have collapsed in the gutter. On another occasion, I arrived home covered in blood. I deliberately smashed the window. With all this, it was becoming increasingly hard to maintain my front of distinction and respectability to the world. My personality was stretched almost to splitting in effort. Schizophrenia stared me in the face, and one night I was in a despair. My professional life looked fine on the surface. I was now head of a publishing venture in which nearly $1 million had been invested. My opinions were quoted in Time and Newsweek along with pictures. I addressed the public by radio and TV. It was a fantastic structure built on a crumbling foundation. It was tottering and it had to fall. It did. After my last binge, I came home and smacked my dining room furniture to splinters, kicked out 6 windows and 2 balusters, which I woke up sober, or when I woke up sober, my handiwork confronted me. It was impossible for me to reproduce my despair. I'd had absolute faith in science and only in science. Knowledge is power. I'd always been taught now I had to face up to the fact that knowledge of this sort applied to my individual case was not power. Science could take my mind apart expertly, but it couldn't seem to put it together again. I crawled back to my analyst, not so much because I had faith in him, but because I had nowhere else to turn. After talking with him for a time, I heard myself saying, "Doc, I think I'm an alcoholic." "Yes," he said, surprisingly, "you are." "Then why in God's name haven't you told me so during all these years?" "2 reasons," he said. "First, I couldn't be sure. The line between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic is not always clear. It wasn't until just lately that in your case I could draw it. Second, you wouldn't have believed me even if I had told you." I had to admit to myself that he was right. Only through being beaten down by my own misery would I ever have accepted the term alcoholic as applied to myself. Now, however, I accept it fully. I knew from my general reading that alcoholism was irreversible and fatal. And I knew that somewhere along the line I'd lost the power to stop drinking. "Well, Doc," I said, "what are we going to do?" "There's nothing I can do," he said, "and nothing medicine can do. However, I've heard of an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous that has had some success with people like you. They make an They make no guarantees and are not always successful. But if you want to, you're free to try them. It might work." Many times in the intervening years, I had thanked God for that man. A man who had the courage to admit failure. A man who had the humility to confess that all the hard-won learning of his profession could could not turn up the answer. I looked up AA meetings and went there alone. Here I found an ingredient that had been lacking in any other effort I had made to save myself. Here was power. Here was power to live to the end of any given day, power to have the courage to face the next day, power to have friends, power to help people, power to be sane, power to stay sober. That was 7 years ago and many AA meetings ago. And I haven't had a drink during those 7 years. Moreover, I am deeply convinced that so long as I continue to strive in my humbling way toward the principles I first encountered in the early chapters of this book, this remarkable power will continue to flow through me. What is this power? With my AA friends, all I can say is that it's power greater than myself. If pressed, all I can do is follow the Holmeses who said it long before me. But still, and know that, be still, and know that I am God. My story has a happy ending, but not of the conventional kind. I had a lot more hell to go through, but what a difference there is between going through hell without a power greater than oneself and with it, as might have been predicted. My teetering towers of worldly success collapsed. My alcoholic associates fired me, took control, and ran the enterprise into bankruptcy. My alcoholic wife took up with someone else, divorced me, and took with her all my remaining property. The most terrible blow was my life befell me after I found sobriety through AA. Perhaps the single flicker of decency that shone through the fog of my drinking days was a clumsy affection for my two children, a boy and a girl. One night my son, when he was only 16, was suddenly and tragically killed. The higher power was on deck to see me through. Sober. I think he's on hand to see my son through it. There have been some wonderful things too. My new wife and I don't own any property to speak of, and the flashy success of another day are no longer mine. But we have a baby who, if you'll pardon a little post-alcoholic sentimentally mentality, is right out of heaven. My work is on a much deeper and more significant level than it ever was before, and I am today a fairly creative, relatively sane human being. And should I have more bad times, I know that I'll never again have to go through them alone. So finding the higher power help to help you get through the hard times of, once you're sober, because when you're drinking you just think, okay, I'm going to drink my pain away, because that's what alcohol does for you. That's our thinking anyways. Hello, Desert Adventures. um so I mean, like anytime I would go through like losing a family member, or what I want to say is when my nanny passed away was when I started my heavy drinking. I really kicked it off there, and I drank for every reason. I drank even if there was no reason. I'd make one up. The alcohol took over my thoughts of feelings on all of those things. And when I decided I was going to get sober, right after that, or right before I decided to get sober, my father-in-law had passed away. And I think about every day that I drank. He knew I was an alcoholic. Everybody knew. Even I knew. I just didn't want to admit it for a long time. But when he passed away, it hurt a lot. And that was when I had actually just went back to drinking from being sober for a year without any help. And I wish that he would be here to see me sober and being a better person and not trying to hide the fact that I'm drinking, not being a sneak. I'm just lucky that my kids get to see me sober and that my grandkids, if I ever have any, will never see me drinking and will never see me smoking, because in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, it'll be 1 year since I smoked a cigarette. And AA taught me I could do that. They taught me that I can use this program for anything. So I use it for my sobriety, and I have used it for my no smoking, as well as, I did take meds to help me quit smoking, but sometimes you need that help, and it's okay to ask for that help. And if you're struggling with alcoholism and you find AA doesn't cut it all the way for you, there's other help. Contact your doctor. Ask them if they can help you with something to help you not drink. I've had family members do that as well, and it's still sober today. But my sobriety is my number one. I don't do anything until I do my sobriety first. And sometimes that's all I can get done is my sobriety. And I have emphysema, so quitting smoking hopefully helped me to be here longer. Quitting is not easy. Staying sober is not easy, but it gets a little easier every day. I can vouch for that. Having 10 years and a year and 4 months, or 10 years and 4 months of being sober, and almost a year of no smoking, I think this program can do things for everyone. And I know the first time may not hit you like it needs to. Maybe you'll come 10 times and then finally it'll click. Sometimes it's the first time you step into a meeting. That's what it did for me. My first meeting I ever went to, I kept going. I haven't been to a meeting for a couple years other than doing these ones. But, with the sick thing going around and all of that, and that time of everybody's life took a toll, and some of my fellow AA groups went back out to smoking or to drinking, and sometimes that happens. It's not fun. It's not good, and we can just pray that they come back and try to work it again. Because I really do believe this program works. If you work this program every day, you figure out that life gets easier. Life can be what you want it without that alcohol. You can come back to possibly having your family, having your friends. You don't want to go back to all of the old friends. But you also may not realize that you're the reason that you have walked away from your family. They didn't do it. They wanted you to become sober and stay sober. And sometimes it gets frustrating when that person won't understand or won't comprehend to say, okay, yes, I do need this help. It takes some people a while to ask for it. It takes some people a while to admit that they have a problem. And, we can't do that for them. They have to do it for themselves. And my thing for all my sponsees, I always tell them, and yes, I still have a sponsor. All my sponsees, I always tell them, you can't fix anything until you fix yourself. And you can't take care of anything until you take care of yourself. And that includes becoming sober. To be able to say, okay, I have this problem and I need the help. To come out and reach out to somebody and say, hey, I have a problem and I need your help. I've had plenty of people do that to me. They've come to me and said, hey, I have this problem. Can you help me? Can you, guide me to where I need to be? Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Really, it does. For me to be able to do this program for everybody here, it's a blessing. It's a blessing to know what to say, and it's the truth of what I say. I don't blow smoke or sunshine on the AA or anything. It's the truth. And if you want sobriety, believe me, even those bad days are worth it. Even the bad days are worth it. You get to have all those wonderful memories of you having clear conscience and wonderful things happening. Uh, Even if, sad things happen and you can actually have your true feelings. You don't have to try to be something that you're not. You can be the authentic you. And that's what I am, is myself. Being the true me and not hiding anything and being able to share my story really helps. So if you're struggling today, know that you're not the only one. And if you need help, reach out. There's meetings everywhere. If you need NA or NA support to help you through it with a family member, or even if you need AA to help you to get your family member to understand what's going on and what you think without being mean about it, suggest the AA to that person. And for those who have family members that need the help to understand what the person, the addict, is going through and ways to help that addict, contact in a meeting. They will help you. Just ask them those questions that you need answered. And when I went to AA for the first time, I felt welcome. Um, I didn't say my name that first meeting, I don't think. And I didn't always talk. I wouldn't read, and here I am doing it all here. My sponsor got me to do one speaker meeting, and I was a speaker. I think I was a 10-minute speaker. And it really helped me to want to share. Quit eating that. I don't know what you just swallowed. Dog, you're crazy. But anyways, there is help. If you're the one who is suffering, reach out. There's always people there to help. And you never know, maybe your family member does actually understand more than you think. Um, so, with that, let's go ahead and read the daily reflection so you guys can get back on your day. Today is February 18th. Our paths are our own. There was nothing left of us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 25. My first attempt at the steps was one of obligation and necessity, which resulted in a deep feeling of discouragement in the face of all those adverbs. Courageously, completely, humbly, directly, and only. I considered Bill W. Fortune fortunate to have gone through such a major, even sensational spiritual experience. I had to discover as time went on that my path was my own. After a few 24 hours in the AA fellowship, thanks especially to the sharing of the members in the meetings, I understood that everyone gradually finds his or her own pace in moving through the steps through progressive means. I try to live according to these suggestions or suggested principles as a result of these steps. I can say today that my attitude towards life, people, and towards anything having to do with God has been transformed and improved. And with that, I will call it a meeting. Thank you guys for being here. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love you guys. Be safe out there. Be kind. Love you guys. Trying to get it to end. Love you guys. Be safe and stay sober.